All right, let's get right into it. Today, we're going on a trip inside your own head. We're going to explore something pretty profound. The way media, everything you watch, read, and scroll through, is physically interacting with the wiring of your brain. And, well, how that fundamentally shapes your reality. So, let's start with a big question. One you've probably asked yourself while scrolling late at night. Is your phone, is it actually changing your brain? Look, the short answer from neuroscience is a big flashing yes. But that's not the interesting part. The how, that's where things get really wild. And it all begins with a little secret your brain has been hiding from you.
Okay, so to really get how media can change our brains, we first have to pull back the curtain on a pretty surprising secret about how your brain is organized in the first place. You see, deep down in your cortex, your brain isn't just some messy jumble of neurons. It's actually got this incredible semantic atlas. Think of it like a map of meanings, a highly organized landscape where every single concept you know has a specific home. And what's crazy is that with tools like fMRI, scientists can literally watch this map in action. They can see that concepts like, say, hammer and saw are clustered right next to concepts for building and doing. And ideas about friends or family are right there in the neighborhood of love and trust. It's all laid out logically.
Okay, but here's where it goes from interesting to absolutely mind-blowing. That incredibly complex personal map inside your head, it looks a whole lot like the one inside my head. And everyone else's. I mean, this isn't just a hunch. The research shows this map is shockingly consistent across people from totally different cultures who speak completely different languages. It's like, despite all our unique lives and experiences, our brains come with this shared universal template for making sense of the world.
So, what's the organizing principle for this universal map? Well, it seems to boil down to a few core ideas. Our brains, no matter what language we speak, are hardwired to separate things along a few key lines: social versus non-social, concrete things versus abstract ideas, and stuff related to places versus stuff related to events. And this whole shared structure, which we find in major parts of the brain, like the temporal, parietal, and frontal lobes, it really does act like a common blueprint for how we all build meaning.
And this system is unbelievably robust. I mean, think about it. Whether you listen to a story or you read the exact same words on a page, the entry point is different, right? One comes through your ears, activating the auditory cortex, the other through your eyes, activating the visual cortex. But, and this is the key part, once that information gets past the front door, the parts of your brain that actually understand the meaning use the exact same code. It's like two different doors leading to the exact same room. Eye or ear, the meaning always finds its way to the same spot on the map.
All right, so let's connect the dots here. We all have these surprisingly similar mental maps, and they all process meaning using the same fundamental code. So what happens when one single message, one story, one video, one tweet is broadcast to millions of us all at the exact same time? Well, that's where things shift from the individual brain to a massive collective phenomenon.
The source material for this explainer uses a pretty provocative term for this. It talks about social puppet strings. Now, I know that sounds a little dramatic, maybe even conspiratorial, but we're not talking about some kind of mystical mind control here. It's pointing to a very real, very concrete neurological fact. Because our brains are wired so alike, a piece of shared media can trigger nearly identical patterns of brain activity in millions of people, all at once.
So how does this neural synchronization actually work? It's really a simple three-step process. First, you have a shared media signal that gets broadcast out. Think of a major news story, a viral video, or a powerful political slogan. Step 2, that signal hits our brains and instantly activates those shared semantic maps we just talked about in millions of people at the same time. And the result? You get this incredible, time-locked, synchronized neural activity across a massive group of people. The story is, quite literally, making all of their brains fire in unison.
But it's really important to get this next part right. This social puppet string idea isn't about some button you can press for instant control. No, it's about a connection in the brain that gets built up and strengthened over time. Imagine a political ad campaign. You see an opponent's face, and right next to it, you see images of factories closing. And you see this again, and again, and again. Over time, the neural pathway connecting that specific face with the concept of economic hardship becomes like a well-worn path in a forest. It's just easier for your brain to walk down that path. That path is the string. It's a learned connection that makes one thought much more likely to spark another.
So this all leads to a really fundamental question, right? If these maps and these pathways are built and strengthened over time, how in the world does that actually happen? How does something as intangible as our experience become the physical structure of our brain? Well, the answer is a concept you've probably heard of: neuroplasticity. The big idea here is that your brain is not some fixed, static object that you're just born with. Not at all. Think of it more like a block of clay. From the second you're born, it's constantly being shaped and remodeled by everything you do. The things you do over and over again, the skills you practice, the media you consume, are literally carving grooves and pathways into that clay. They are building the very architecture of your mind.
And if you want a perfect, undeniable example of this in action, just think about reading. We humans are not born with a reading center in our brains. Reading is a super recent invention, evolutionarily speaking. So to learn how to do it, our brain has to do something amazing. It has to recycle a part of itself. It takes a patch of the visual cortex, which was originally for recognizing objects and faces, and it retrains it over years and years of practice to specialize in recognizing letters and words. This visual word form area is living proof that our experiences can build entirely new tools inside our heads by repurposing old parts.
So if practice makes perfect, or at least permanent, what exactly are we practicing every day with our media habits? Let's put two things side by side. On one hand, you've got deep, sustained immersion, like reading a book for an hour. That's a workout for the neural circuits responsible for sustained attention, for following complex arguments. Now, on the other hand, you have scrolling through a fragmented, fast-moving social media feed. That's a workout for a completely different set of circuits, the ones that are great at detecting what's new and shiny and rapidly switching your attention. You're exercising completely different neural muscles.
Okay, this brings us to the final and maybe the most crucial piece of the puzzle. If our daily digital activities are shaping our brains so profoundly, we have to ask who or what is designing those activities for millions of us.
And the answer, when you zoom out, is institutions. We're talking about massive structures like our school systems, and maybe most powerfully today, our media platforms. You can think of them as setting the pace for our brains. They define the rhythms, the tempo, the rules of the game that our incredibly adaptive plastic brains then spend years learning to play by.
Let's make this really concrete by comparing old and new media. Think about a classic TV show from back in the day. It was structured, it was finite, the show would end, the credits would roll, and your brain would get a natural, built-in pause, a moment to digest and process. Now contrast that with a modern streaming platform. What's its design goal? To maximize engagement. So it's built to be endless. That autoplay feature that rolls right into the next episode, that's not an accident. It's specifically designed to eliminate the very breaks your brain needs for deep learning and memory formation.
And we really have to let this sink in. These design choices, having a clear endpoint versus an endless scroll, these are not small things. Over the course of years, especially during the critical developmental periods of childhood and adolescence, these external rhythms get written into the physical hardware of our brains. They are literally strengthening some neural pathways while potentially leaving other crucial pathways underdeveloped. So all of this leaves us with one last, really big question. We know now that our brains aren't fixed things. We know they are actively, physically being shaped by the media environments we live in, and we know that those environments are, in fact, designed. So the question we all have to ask ourselves is, who do we want holding the blueprints to our own minds?